G'day, welcome to another episode of Ranking Up. It's very hard to explain your embarrassment when you have a bad game, like I did last game. When you're trying to do a series where you're showing people like this is the right, the right way to. If you want to rank up, this is the right way to play. You got to play cautious, got to play safe, blah blah blah. Here's what you should do, and sort of, you're taking on like a presumptive role, saying I'm actually pretty good at this game, and then you die early like that and lose ranking points really early in your first 10 games in the server. it's solidly embarrassing, I have to say. So I mean, the reality is these things happen with 100 people. Occasionally you just get a bad matchup, get a bad situation. I got greedy with the crate. It's probably a learning for me that, if that was the game where if I got into the top 10, I would become, first on the server, then there's no way I would go for that crate. So it's probably a lesson to me to just be stick to what I know works, stick to playing defensive, not getting caught out with fights like that. It was a bit of a chaos fight. I could have maybe done better, but I don't even really want to analyze, should I have gotten in the car? Should I have gone around the crate? If you're wondering why I got in the car to shoot, it was because I didn't want to get run over, and if you're inside the car, then you're safe. And I just couldn't tell immediately where the car was coming from, or how far away it was. So I thought I'll get in the car and then I can, shoot from the seat. Ended up losing a close fight. Probably if I had just turned around and shot him, I would have been fine. But these things are hard to judge. And it was, basically a 50-50 fight. Occasionally I'll lose those. Often I'll lose them. It's the nature of the coin flip. But, is there much point analyzing that? I sort of, I know that the problem is being in the situation. It's not losing the fight. So maybe if I'm exceptionally good, I can turn that in from a 50-50 into a 60-40. Still, it's just a bad fight to take. It is a ranking negative fight to take. And that was the concern there. I'll talk a little bit about that actually, because I'm not finding a car or doing anything cool here, so might as well. But it's sort of a poker term. They talk about it's a play which will make you it's a losing play or a winning play, but they're not talking about this game. They're not saying will this play help you win or lose, because that's pretty obvious. Either you win the hand or you didn't, and if you didn't, then it's helping you lose, and if you win, then it's helping you win. But the issue is if you could make that play 100 times in a row. Okay. Sorry, I saw an open door on the other side there in the barn. I might just carefully fuck off. I saw a buggy up by this bridge a little while ago, so that's what I'll go for. Fuck. Red zone just made this a little bit more annoying. Okay. I think we're alright. Unless the red zone gets us. Yeah, so, what was I saying? Yeah, is it a winning or a losing play? So that question is asking, if I played this game in identical situations 100 times over, 1,000 times over, again and again and again, is it overall better that I do this or overall better that I don't? So let's say that's a 50-50 fight, where the fight that I just lost last game. So I have a 50% chance of beating him and a 50% chance of not beating him. In this case, it was bad, obviously. It was a bad outcome for me. But sometimes I'll win. which would be a good outcome for me. I'll get extra loot, and I'll get a few extra ranking points. I'll get the contents of the crate, so I'll be more powerful. So if you add up all those good things, do they outweigh the bad things or not? That's the question. If it's exactly 50-50, that's the question. And okay, well, the extra gun might mean that sometimes I get kills when otherwise I wouldn't. If I get a sniper rifle, well, sometimes I'll get a sniper rifle there, right? When I do, that is a better gun than my SKS, which I had. Sometimes there'll be situations where if I have an SKS, I will not get a kill. Whereas if I have the sniper, like an M24, say, then I will get a kill. And in those situations, it'll make me rank up a bit higher, and I'll get a few points from killing and all that sort of stuff. Okay. But the question is, how often does that happen? And is it enough to make up for dying on the spot at 48th place without a kill 50% of the time? And I think even if you really love the AWM, and even if you're lucky, like, I mean, how many times do you even get an AWM? I might get a pretty rubbish weapon that's inside that crate, right? Or a weapon that I'm not that comfortable using. A lot of the time it won't make a difference. A lot of the time the SKS will perform just as well. You know, like, well, even if it doesn't perform as well, I will get the kill with an SKS just as I would get a kill with a AWM. Right? So, like, I'm in the final circle. The first time I see a guy, I put my crosshairs over his head and fire. With an SKS, I might need to fire twice. But I'll kill him, like, 80% of the time. So, really, in a sense, there wasn't any advantage to the AWM. Like, it felt cooler. I got the kill in a cooler way. But it didn't actually do much to distinguish itself a lot of the time. And there are plenty of times when... Sorry, just making sure there's no one else here. There are plenty of times when it won't help at all, you know, just no matter what happens, I'll die by getting shot in the back. It's hard to see guys in this game. Someone, you know, or the white will screw me in. I'll have to run a long way and I'll flip my car, and it just doesn't matter what gun I've got. So a lot of times it won't even help me get a higher rank. But even if it does help me get a higher rank, remember half the time I'm dying at 48. So if you look at 10 games of mine, say, and I have, okay, well, 5 of these games you died at 48th with 0 kills, and the other 5 games you got, you know, well, this one you got a win instead of getting 5th. This one you got 10th instead of getting 28th, and the other 3 were all the same. Those 5 games of 48 and 0, they're way overpowering the small extra gains I made up in the other scenario. Like they're a genuine drag on my ranking that is just not overcome by managing to turn a couple of my good games into even better games. And then you have to balance it with a few more things. So, for example, this is a bit loose to go all the way up here, but I've got a lot of energy drinks, so I'm just going to do it. Try and just cherry pick the best parts of this town. Then there's all sorts of all the loot that I should have got from the town had I not gone to the crate. Right? So if I just stay in Severny looting, maybe I find, you know, a military vest there. Maybe I find a scope there, and there isn't a scope in the crate. Maybe I find all sorts of stuff that's better. So it's not crate versus no crate. It's crate versus Severny loot. And then we have to see whether or not there's a difference. So there's just a lot of factors to consider when you do a calculation like this. And actually very rarely is there, like, almost always overwhelmingly, it's worse for your ranking to have any sort of decent chance of dying early. And in particular, like by decent chance, I mean like higher than maybe even 20%. Like even if I say die a quarter of the time there and 3/4 of the time I get the crate, it's probably still not worth it compared to never dying there and just, living a fancy free life, looting up in a town. It's that powerful to not die early, and it's that powerful to just get normal loot. So that's all a very long and involved way of saying of explaining why I'm not sort of beating myself up or going back and forth over that last game, that last fight. Sorry, it's actually the wrong question, and you can find yourself you can improve in a lot of different games if you remember that line. Just ask yourself: is this the right question to be asking? Is this where I lost it? A lot of people like this game is such luck. If that circle goes on the other side, then so unfair. It all comes down to just who's on which side. Well, there's a lot of decisions that you made up in the lead up to that. Is that a guy you could have taken earlier? Could you have had more aggressive circle positioning earlier? Are your meds and weapons not allowing you to compete? I mean, sometimes there's obviously luck, and sometimes there are very, very harsh circles. But there are also just lots and lots and lots of decisions on the way. A sort of typical one is where you have to go through someone to get into the circle, right? So you think, well, how am I possibly supposed to... there's a guy behind a wall, he's looking at me, he knows where I am, I can't possibly go through him. If the circle was on the other side, he would have to come through me. This game's so unfair, etc., right? But you're missing a key point there, which is why does if you had the chance to take him out earlier and you didn't, then that's on you, right? If the reason why he's there is because 5 minutes ago when you had a shooting fight or he was stationed behind a rock, you chose not to shoot him, well, sorry, Tiger, but you had your shot. And sometimes that isn't the case, but a lot of the times you'll be surprised if you look at just the lead up to the game, how many bits of the game you actually did have some control over, and you sort of aren't counting in that final bit of luck. It's actually a surprisingly large amount. I'm going to take this M416, and it's maybe a bad move. But I have got a full... I've got a full set of stuff for it. I'm worried about ammo. But I just like the gun a lot more than the AK. So... guess I'm just hoping I can find some 5.56. I've also got, the SKS will be perfectly serviceable if I do run out of ammo. It's not going to be the end of the world. That's good. I'm not going to want to number, am I? Another classic is, say I come in on the blue here, right? And I'm fighting really, really hard, and I get into the, just into the white on low health, run into a fuckboy shack to heal, and somebody's in there and shoots me. And I go, my God, talk about terrible luck. What are the chances there's a guy in here? Sure, that's true. It is unlikely that there's a guy in there, but you're the one who chose to cut it so fine that if there was somebody in there, then you're going to get in trouble, right? Like, you could have not been blue warrioring, and it doesn't necessarily make your decision wrong. Like, maybe it's still the right thing to do to blue warrior as hard as you did, but it does mean that it's not really luck. It's not really the most unlikely. Like, it's still something you could have controlled for, and it's still something that maybe in the long run is a good play for you to do. So it's not really the game being so random that you can't get an edge. It's just that sometimes you go in all in with pocket aces pre-flop, and the other guy sucks out and manages to hit the cards that beat you. That doesn't mean that the game has no skill. It means that you got unlucky this time, but in the long run you'll beat those guys again and again. So just, yeah, I mean, you know, it's a personal bugbear of mine, a lot of this stuff. Just have some perspective when you're thinking about luck in this game. It is a highly skill-based game. And I'm happy to play solos versus any reviewer who reckons that the game is mostly luck. Happy to give you, you know, we'll each do 20 solos in the same game or not, and I'll see who ends up on more points. I'm pretty confident. In fact, like in poker, the more you feel like the game is all about luck, probably the worse you are as a player, because it sort of betrays a lack of understanding about the basic nature of the game, which will probably hold you back in other ways. Like, for example, not understanding that avoiding fights is the way to rank up in this game. Even for exceptionally good players, I would suggest. Yeah. I'll take the scar. Yeah, even for exceptionally good players. Like, if you're the Grimses or I think Beagle Rush is an amazing player. Love watching him play, an Australian streamer. And these guys are so good at the game. Like, they're far better mechanically than I am. But I guarantee you, if they played more conservatively, they would win more games. Maybe they don't want to. Maybe they're having fun killing people rather than blue warrior looting like I am. That's totally valid, and I totally understand that perspective. But it's foolish to argue the opposite, that actually their aggressive style gets them points. I think that's almost certainly not true. Willing to be wrong, could be proven empirically wrong on that, but I think it's almost certainly not true. All right. We are on our way back to our car. Gotta get in there. Got 1:15 before it starts closing. So probably not going to get to the circle before it starts. But shouldn't be too far off, I think. Could be famous last words. If I flip a car or something and I don't find one pretty quick soon after, then there's some danger issues here for sure. I should probably actually just first aid rather than try and limp along with bandages here. I also should possibly use this. I do say possibly here though, because it's a bit dicey. Not sure I love those sound effects, they're a bit cartoony. Mind you, the game's a little bit cartoony. People who are saying how it's a realistic shooter, I mean, there's a few games like Tarkov, the real life simulator, obviously, Arma, and a bunch of others that are like, don't have motorcycle physics like this, and are a lot more realistic. For one thing, shots on the limbs actually matter. I hate games like this where you shoot somebody 4 times in the leg and the game is accurately saying that it does less damage than shooting them in the head or the center mass, the chest, but it's totally inaccurately saying that they can then sprint at top speed and everything's hunky-dory. Like, okay, make it do less damage, but, you know, give it some sort of cost that isn't just free. Anyway. Yeah, let's go over the Rosnock Bridge. I'll avoid that whole ruin stuff. Yeah. That's the whole New Orleans stuff. Okay, let's not be silly here. Let's be conservative. Use a painkiller. I've got to watch out because the blue's about to turn, so it's about to get nasty. But I'm pretty comfortably and early using this first aid. So that's fine. That road goes through Pachinki. It does. Yeah, this is... I really should be careful with this trike. Very easy to have a damaging spell which could just end my life, given how much the blue is hurting at the moment. Almost worth taking UAZ. Maybe it is worth... No. Let's just get over this thing. Oh my god. I heard him a little bit, but just didn't see him. Guess he was push cheesing. Still, 17th is ranking up. It's not very satisfying. He was obviously hiding. I was just trying to find a decent spot to heal up. I was going to go into the bottom of the tower, but I feel a little embarrassed, but I shouldn't. This is just the early game ranking up. That's how you do it. It's fine. I'll get plenty of positive points on that. I'll see you next time. GG.